there's no workaround for the fact that our world is made up of nation states, right? That's not about to change. Even as the threats become less respectful of national borders, the threats are still threats that where the resources that exist to combat those threats, whether policing, intelligence, military, in the case of pandemics, public health resources, are manned by nation states, by national authorities, or sometimes by sub-state actors like state governments, or even when you, on a good day, when we get comprehensive responses, you can get the private sector involved. But, you know, Richard Holbrooke used to say about the UN that blaming the UN for a crisis is like blaming Madison Square Garden when the New York Knicks play badly, that you're blaming a building. And the same is true if you think about it in the positive direction. When are we going to get the kinds of reforms of these organizations that we need to make them fit for purpose in the 21st century? When the governments that comprise UN bodies are willing to back those reforms. And particularly when powerful countries like the United States and China are willing to throw their weight behind those reforms. And that means, as sovereign governments, believing in sovereignty, but recognizing that the rights of your citizens and the welfare of your citizens are going to be advanced by making compromises, by strengthening institutions that gather information from all the countries of the world, and not just from select clubs or subsets of all the countries of the world. It's when national governments understand that it is in our interest for people who live in developing countries who don't have the wherewithal to combat terrorism or to combat pandemics or to combat climate change, where national governments that have resources recognize it is in our interest to pool our resources, some of them, to support those countries. Until the kind of politics change within powerful countries to get us acting on these beliefs, on the recognition that we are connected, that our fates are tied with people living in much more difficult circumstances sometimes than we are, until we act on that truth, on that 21st century reality, it's going to be very hard to see those organizations change. It's not that people don't know how they should change. It's that the light bulb has to want to change, you know, that the major powers that comprise these institutions have to be prepared to bring their publics along, or in the case of dictatorships, to bring their little cabals along, or their you know, close-knit governing circles along, and to make those changes. But there's no magic wand that can be waved by the citizenry on their own, or by the Secretary General, or by any particular country. I mean, even a country as powerful as China would not be able single-handedly to change the rules in any particular UN agency, no more than the United States has been able to do so in recent decades, when it had great, vast amounts of influence within these organizations. It's about building it's about building coalitions comprised of countries who are willing to sometimes not get everything they want, but get more of what they want than we are currently seeing, and then is currently in our interest.